can you truly know the person standing beside you, wearing your face, sharing your blood? Imagine growing up with someone who knows every fear you've ever whispered in the dark, every dream you've clutched close to your chest, someone bound to you from the very moment you took your first breath. Now imagine that same person deciding your life is worth more to them than their own. This isn't a story about strangers or distant enemies. This is about the ultimate betrayal, a betrayal that begins in the womb and ends in unthinkable darkness. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you believe about family, identity, and how far someone will go to escape their own shadow. The truth is more disturbing than you can imagine. In a quiet suburb of Denver, Colorado, two girls entered the world on a cold November morning in 1987. Sarah and Emma Richardson were identical twins, mirror images of each other with the same auburn hair, the same green eyes, and the same small birthmark behind their left ears. Their mother, Patricia, used to say she could tell them apart by their energy. Sarah was sunshine, Emma was moonlight. But as they grew, that distinction would become far more troubling than anyone could have predicted. From the outside, they seemed inseparable, two halves of a perfect whole. But inside the walls of their suburban home, a different story was unfolding, one that would take 30 years to reach its devastating conclusion. Their childhood appeared normal enough. The Richardson family lived in a modest two-story house with a white picket fence. Their father, Michael, worked long hours as an insurance adjuster. The twins attended Jefferson Elementary, always dressed in coordinating outfits. But even then, subtle differences were emerging. Sarah was the one who raised her hand first in class, who organized games at recess, who won the spelling bee in 5th grade. Emma watched from the sidelines, always present, but somehow existing in her sister's shadow, her accomplishments measured against Sarah's shine. Teachers would say Sarah was excelling while Emma was doing well, but could apply herself more. Their mother would nod, never understanding that the comparison itself was planting seeds of something dark in Emma's heart. By high school, the dynamic had solidified. Sarah was student council president. Emma was her campaign manager. Sarah made the volleyball team. Emma kept score from the bench. Sarah had boys leaving notes in her locker. Emma watched them slip the folded papers through the vents. The world had decided who was the sun and who was the shadow, and Emma had learned to smile through the designation, even as something inside her began to curdle. She started keeping a journal, pages filled with thoughts she could never speak aloud. In one entry from August 1995, she wrote, "Everyone sees her light. No one sees that I'm disappearing. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to be seen, really seen, without her standing in front of me." The words were prophetic in ways she didn't yet understand. They both attended Colorado State University, Sarah on a full academic scholarship, Emma with student loans. Sarah majored in marketing and joined a sorority, her social calendar constantly full. Emma studied accounting, a practical choice that felt invisible compared to her sister's vibrant college experience. They shared an apartment to save money, but became a pressure cooker of resentment. Emma would come home to find Sarah hosting impromptu gatherings, their living room filled with laughter and music, people who barely noticed when Emma walked through to her bedroom. She became a ghost in her own home, watching her sister live the life she desperately wanted. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The turning point came during their senior year. Sarah met David Chun at a marketing conference, a 26-year-old tech startup founder with dark hair and an easy smile. Sarah brought him home for dinner one evening, and Emma watched as he listened to Sarah's animated stories. But when Sarah excused herself to take a phone call, David turned to Emma with genuine interest, asking about her studies, her plans. For 7 minutes, Emma experienced what it felt like to be seen as herself, not as Sarah's twin. She felt her heart racing in a way that felt both thrilling and dangerous. Over the following months, Emma found herself manufacturing reasons to be around when David visited. Sarah, secure in her relationship and trusting her twin completely, never noticed the way Emma's eyes lingered on David. Late at night, alone in her room, Emma would imagine a different reality, one where she had met David first. The fantasy became an obsession, and the obsession began to poison everything else. After graduation in May 1999, Sarah received a job offer from a prestigious marketing firm. David proposed on a hiking trail overlooking the Rocky Mountains. Emma was there when Sarah came home that evening, her left hand displaying a diamond ring, her face radiant. Emma hugged her sister, felt Sarah's heart beating fast against her own chest, and something inside her cracked. That night, she wrote in her journal, "She has everything. She's always had everything. And I'm still invisible, still the other one, still the twin that people have to be reminded exists. When does it become my turn?" The wedding was planned for October. Emma was maid of honor, organizing bridal showers, coordinating with vendors, standing beside her sister while performing every duty with a smile that photographs would later show never reached her eyes. At the bachelorette party, she listened to Sarah's friends toast her future, talking about how perfect Sarah and David were together. Emma raised her glass with everyone else, but inside she was calculating, measuring, considering possibilities that would have horrified anyone who knew what she was thinking. Sarah and David settled into married life in the Cherry Creek neighborhood. Sarah's career flourished. She was promoted twice in 3 years. David's company continued growing. Emma took a position at a mid-sized accounting firm, work that was steady but unremarkable. She dated occasionally, but nothing lasted. The comparisons were inevitable. Her mother would ask at family dinners how Emma's love life was going, then turn to Sarah to coo over plans for grandchildren. But Emma remained close to Sarah, perhaps too close. She visited regularly, sometimes when David was traveling, sometimes joining them for dinners. Sarah cherished these moments, believing her twin was her best friend. She confided in Emma about her hopes and fears, never noticing how Emma absorbed every detail, cataloging information about Sarah's life with an intensity that went beyond sisterly interest. Emma knew Sarah's passwords, her daily routines, her insecurities. She knew more about Sarah's life than Sarah knew about hers, and that imbalance of knowledge would prove catastrophic. By 2015, the contrast between their lives had become unbearable for Emma. Sarah and David had purchased a beautiful house in the Wash Park neighborhood. Sarah was being considered for a director-level position. Her Instagram was filled with photos of exotic vacations and glamorous friends. Emma's life, measured against this standard, felt suffocatingly small. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled of the Indian restaurant downstairs. Her job offered little advancement. She had no romantic prospects, no exciting plans. She was 38 years old and felt like she was disappearing. The idea came to her gradually, not as a sudden revelation, but as a possibility that crept into her thoughts during sleepless nights. They were identical twins. They had the same DNA, the same physical features. People who didn't know them well often confused them. What if Emma could step into Sarah's life completely? What if she could have everything Sarah had? The thought was monstrous, but once it took root, it grew with terrifying speed. She began to study Sarah more carefully, noting the way she moved, the phrases she used. She practiced in her bathroom mirror, mimicking Sarah's expressions, her laugh, the way she tilted her head when listening. Emma started making plans with methodical precision. She suggested a sister trip, just the two of them, a weekend at a cabin in the mountains. Sarah, touched by the gesture, agreed immediately. They booked a remote cabin near Breckenridge for early March 2016. Emma spent the weeks before researching, planning, considering every variable. She made purchases online using cash, items that couldn't be traced. She was creating the architecture of a nightmare, and Sarah had no idea what was coming. The weekend started normally. They drove up Friday afternoon, Sarah chatting about a new client. The cabin was perfect, isolated but comfortable. They unpacked, made dinner, opened wine. Sarah seemed relaxed, the stress of work melting away. They talked late into the night, Sarah sharing her hopes, her gratitude for having Emma in her life. "You're the only person who really knows me," Sarah said, squeezing Emma's hand. Emma squeezed back, masking the ice spreading through her veins. Saturday dawned clear and cold. Emma suggested a hike. Sarah hesitated, but Emma insisted she had extra boots that would fit. They set out mid-morning, following a trail Emma had researched extensively. The trail was rarely used in winter, their footprints the only marks in fresh snow. They reached an overlook just after noon, a rocky point jutting over a steep ravine, at least 100-foot drop to ice-covered rocks below. Sarah stood near the edge, taking photos of the stunning view. Emma stood behind her, watching, her heart pounding. "Sarah," she said quietly, and when her sister turned, Emma saw her own face reflected back. For a moment, doubt flickered. This was her twin, her other half. But then she thought about returning to her small apartment, her invisible existence. The moment of hesitation passed. She moved quickly, shoving hard, both hands against Sarah's back. Sarah's scream was cut short as she stumbled forward, arms windmilling. The edge gave way. Emma watched as her sister fell, her body striking an outcropping 20 feet down, then continuing its terrible descent. The sound of impact echoed, then silence. Complete, awful silence. Emma stood there, staring at the crumpled form far below, barely visible among rocks and ice. Sarah wasn't moving. Emma felt nothing at first, a strange numbness, then a wave of something that might have been grief or relief. She had done it. There was no going back. Emma descended carefully, her mind racing through the plan she had rehearsed. She would return to the cabin, pack both their belongings, drive back to Denver in Sarah's car. She would become Sarah, slip into her sister's life like changing clothes. No one would question identical twins being confused. By the time anyone suspected anything, Emma would be so entrenched that the truth would seem impossible. She reached the cabin as shadows lengthened, mechanically gathering items, loading the car. She took Sarah's phone, wallet, wedding ring. Emma slipped the ring on her own left hand, feeling its weight. She was Sarah now. Emma Richardson was dead in all the ways that mattered. The drive back took 4 hours, Emma's hands gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. She kept rehearsing her new identity, reminding herself to respond to Sarah's name. She arrived at Sarah and David's house near midnight. The house was dark, David working late. Emma moved through rooms she had visited as a guest, now seeing them with different eyes. This was her home now. She showered, then crawled into Sarah and David's bed. She lay in the darkness, waiting, trying to feel like the person she was pretending to be. David came home around 2 in the morning. He slipped into bed quietly. In the darkness, he reached for her hand, squeezing gently before drifting towards sleep. Emma lay rigid, terrified he would sense something wrong. But he noticed nothing. Morning came too quickly. David's alarm went off at 6:30, and Emma forced herself to wake naturally. "Morning," David mumbled, kissing her forehead. Emma breathed slowly, carefully. She could do this. The first few days were the most dangerous. Emma called Sarah's boss Monday morning, explaining there had been a family emergency. Her twin sister had been in a terrible accident. She needed time off. The boss expressed concern, told her to take all the time needed. Emma then called her own employer from a burner phone, claiming to be Sarah and explaining that Emma Richardson had died in a hiking accident. She then called emergency services to report her twin missing after a hiking trip, providing coordinates near the cabin. Search and rescue found the body 2 days later. Identification made through dental records matching Emma Richardson's file. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The funeral was held the following week. Emma attended as Sarah, standing beside David as he comforted her, his arm around her shoulders as she wept genuine tears. She wasn't crying for Emma. She was crying for what she had destroyed, for the sister she had killed. Their mother, Patricia, was devastated. She clung to Sarah, grateful she still had one twin remaining, never knowing that both daughters were lost to her now. Emma was buried at Fairmount Cemetery, her name on a granite headstone. Sarah Richardson stood at the graveside, watching them lower the casket, feeling like she was burying herself. The weeks after were a delicate dance of deception. Emma threw herself into learning every detail of Sarah's life with obsessive focus. She read through emails going back years, studied calendars and work files, memorized names. She practiced Sarah's handwriting until her signature was indistinguishable. She became Sarah more completely than Sarah had been herself, analyzing and replicating every aspect with analytical precision. David noticed she seemed different, quieter perhaps, but he attributed it to grief. He tried to be supportive. Emma accepted his comfort while feeling like a fraud. She returned to Sarah's job 3 weeks later. Colleagues welcomed her back with sympathy, never questioning who she was. Emma discovered she was actually good at the work, her analytical mind adapting well to marketing strategy. Within 2 months, she had successfully pitched the client Sarah had been pursuing. The director role Sarah had been working toward was offered to Emma 4 months after the funeral. She was succeeding in Sarah's life, but every accomplishment felt stolen. The marriage to David proved complicated. She loved him, or believed she did, though her feelings were tangled with obsession. David was kind, patient, attentive in ways she had never experienced. They fell into routines together. But there were moments when Emma saw David watching her with a puzzled expression. "You seem different sometimes," he said one evening about 6 months in. "Like you're thinking about something far away." Emma forced a smile. "I'm still processing everything. Losing Emma, it changed me." David nodded, accepting the explanation, never imagining how true those words were. A year passed, then another. Emma lived Sarah's life with increasing confidence. She excelled at the job, earning promotions. She and David bought a vacation property in Aspen, took trips to Europe. Her mother slowly recovered from grief, focusing energy on her remaining daughter, never knowing that daughter was an imposter. Emma attended family gatherings, played the role so convincingly that she sometimes forgot she was playing at all. But late at night, when David was asleep beside her, Emma would lie awake and remember. She would see Sarah's face in that final moment, the confusion and betrayal in eyes that mirrored her own. The memories didn't haunt her with guilt exactly, but with a strange disconnection, as if remembering something that had happened to someone else. The cracks began appearing in year 3. David started working longer hours, his company facing financial difficulties. When he was home, he seemed distracted, scrolling through his phone during dinner. Emma tried to engage him, but something felt off, a distance growing between them. She wondered if David sensed something subconsciously, some fundamental difference. Or perhaps this was simply what happened in marriages over time. Then came the discovery that would unravel everything. Emma was cleaning David's home office one Saturday when she found a phone hidden in a desk drawer, an iPhone she didn't recognize. She powered it on, discovering no passcode protection. The phone contained text messages, thousands of them, conversations with someone named Lisa Nguyen stretching back over 2 years. Emma's hands shook as she scrolled through messages, watching a relationship unfold. David had been having an affair, conducting an entire secret relationship. The messages from 2 years ago meant he had been cheating on Sarah, the real Sarah, before Emma had even killed her. Emma felt a bizarre mixture of emotions: rage at David's betrayal, vindication that Sarah's perfect life hadn't been so perfect, and strange grief for what her sister had endured without knowing. The final messages were from the previous week. David was planning to ask for a divorce. The revelation was devastating. Not because Emma loved David, she realized she had been in love with what he represented, not who he actually was. The devastation came from understanding that everything she had done, the murder she had committed, the life she had stolen, had been for an illusion. Sarah's perfect existence had been a mirage. The marriage Emma had been so desperate to possess was already fracturing. She had killed her sister for a lie, destroyed both their lives for something that didn't exist. That evening, when David came home, Emma confronted him. She held up the phone. "Who is Lisa Nguyen?" David's face went pale. "Sarah, I can explain," he started, but Emma cut him off. "Don't." "How long?" David slumped into a chair. 2.5 years. It started at a conference. "I never meant for it to happen, but you were always so busy with work, and Lisa was there, and I was weak." Emma listened with cold detachment. "Were you ever planning to tell me?" David looked up. "I wanted to. I was going to ask for a divorce last year, but then your sister died, and you were so broken, and I couldn't do that to you when you were grieving." The irony was almost funny. David had stayed out of pity for Emma's loss, never knowing that loss was fiction. "I want you to leave," Emma said quietly. David looked surprised. "We should talk about this, maybe counseling." Emma shook her head. "There's nothing to talk about. You've been lying for years. I want you out. Tonight." David saw something in her expression that made him stop arguing. He packed a bag and left. Alone that night, Emma finally allowed herself to fully process what she had done. She had murdered her twin sister, stolen her identity, lived her life for 3 years, all for this. A failed marriage to a cheating man, a job that brought no real fulfillment, a life that looked perfect but fell hollow. She thought about Sarah, wondering if her sister had known about David's affair. The questions had no answers. Sarah was gone, her truth lost forever. Emma walked through the house, recognizing that every room belonged to someone else. She was a ghost haunting her sister's life, trapped, unable to go back, unable to move forward, unable to ever be herself again. 5 years after the murder, Emma woke up one morning and realized she couldn't remember her own voice. She had been performing Sarah for so long that her original self had been completely subsumed. She tried to remember how Emma Richardson spoke, but the memory was gone. She had become Sarah so thoroughly that Emma no longer existed even in her own mind. The realization sent her into a panic. She spent the day alone, trying to find some piece of her original identity. She dug through boxes, finding old photos, journals. She read through her old journal entries, seeing her handwriting documenting the growing obsession, the planning, the moment she decided to kill. The words felt like they belonged to a stranger. That night, Emma made a decision. She couldn't continue living Sarah's life, couldn't keep performing this role that had consumed her completely. She needed to confess, to tell the truth, to accept consequences she had been running from. She called the Denver Police Department, asked to speak with someone about a cold case. The detective sounded tired but interested. "What information do you have?" Emma took a deep breath. "My name is Emma Richardson. I killed my twin sister, Sarah Richardson, 5 years ago and have been living as her ever since. I'm ready to confess." There was a long silence. Then, "Ma'am, can you repeat that, please?" The arrest happened quickly. Police arrived within an hour, reading Emma her rights as they handcuffed her. Neighbors watched in confusion, seeing Sarah Richardson, the successful executive, being led to a police car. Emma didn't resist. She felt overwhelming relief. At the police station, she gave a full confession, detailing the planning, the execution, the deception. She told them where to find evidence. Detectives listened with expressions ranging from shock to disgust. The forensic evidence was conclusive. Dental records confirmed that the woman who had been living as Sarah Richardson was actually Emma Richardson. DNA testing verified her identity. The body buried under Emma's name was exhumed and re-identified as Sarah Richardson. News media seized on the story, headlines screaming about the twin who killed her sister and stole her life. Emma's face appeared on every news channel. People who had known them came forward, trying to explain how they had never suspected. David gave a statement expressing shock, saying he had never imagined the woman he had been married to wasn't actually his wife. Patricia Richardson collapsed when police informed her, unable to process that she had lost both daughters, one to murder and one to a monstrous act. The trial began 8 months after Emma's arrest. Her defense attorney tried to argue for leniency based on mental health issues. But the prosecution's case was overwhelming. Emma had planned the murder meticulously, executed it with cold precision, shown no remorse for 5 years. The jury deliberated less than 6 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on charges of first-degree murder, fraud, and identity theft. Emma sat motionless as the verdict was read, feeling nothing but strange emptiness. The sentencing hearing was held 2 weeks later. Patricia Richardson attended, sitting in the front row, her face aged by grief. She didn't look at Emma once. Friends of Sarah's spoke about the vibrant woman they had known. David submitted a victim impact statement describing the trauma of learning he had been living with his wife's killer. The judge's expression was hard. "You didn't just kill your sister," the judge said, looking directly at Emma. "You erased her from existence, stole her identity, and robbed everyone who loved her of the chance to properly mourn. You showed a level of premeditation and callousness that demonstrates you are a danger to society. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Emma was transferred to the Colorado Women's Correctional Facility where she would spend the rest of her life. She was processed, given an inmate number, assigned to a cell. In prison, she was just another inmate, no longer Sarah or Emma, but a convicted murderer whose crime had made her infamous. Some avoided her. Others sought her out, curious. Emma spoke to no one about her motivations, keeping to herself. At night, in her cell, she would think about Sarah, about the sister she had envied so desperately that she had destroyed both their lives. So what can we learn from this devastating true story? The tragedy of Emma and Sarah Richardson forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, about envy, identity, and the dangers of comparison. Emma spent her entire life measuring herself against her twin, allowing external validation and perceived success to define her worth. She believed that by stealing Sarah's life, she could finally escape the shadow she felt she lived in, never understanding that the shadow was internal, a darkness she carried within herself. The life she envied was an illusion, a curated surface that hid struggles Sarah never shared. Emma destroyed everything for a mirage, and in doing so, revealed a fundamental truth. No one else's life can save you from yourself. The emptiness Emma felt wasn't caused by lacking Sarah's achievements or relationships. It was caused by her inability to value her own existence, to find meaning in her own journey rather than constantly comparing it to someone else's. This story also forces us to consider the invisible damage caused by constant comparison, especially within families. Emma and Sarah were compared their entire lives, measured against each other by parents, teachers, friends, society. The system that created Sarah as the successful one and Emma as the other twin planted seeds of resentment that grew into something monstrous. How many of us carry similar scars from childhood comparisons? Most of us don't respond with violence, but we might respond with bitterness, with self-destruction, with broken relationships. The question isn't whether Emma's actions were justified. They were absolutely heinous. The question is what lessons we can draw about how we treat people around us, and whether our comparisons contribute to pain we never see. Perhaps most haunting is the question of identity itself. Emma killed her sister and assumed her identity so completely that she lost her own sense of self in the process. She became Sarah so thoroughly that Emma essentially died along with the sister she murdered. In trying to escape herself, she erased herself. It raises profound questions about who we are beyond the names we're given and the roles we play. Emma's tragedy suggests that identity isn't something we can simply exchange like clothing. It's woven into every moment of our lived experience, and trying to inhabit someone else's existence leads only to profound existential annihilation. She ended up neither Emma nor Sarah, but a ghost existing between identities, belonging to neither life. Trapped in a prison of her own, making long before the physical prison walls closed around her. As we close this heartbreaking story, I want to ask you to reflect deeply. How would you have felt if you were Sarah, trusting your twin sister completely, never suspecting your closest family member was planning your death? Can you imagine the betrayal in those final moments? And what about Emma, living a stolen life, performing someone else's identity day after day? Does understanding her lifelong feelings of inadequacy make her actions any less monstrous? Where is the line between understanding someone's pain and excusing their choices? Think about the people in your own life. Are you measuring yourself against them in ways that breed resentment? Are you so focused on what others have that you can't see the value in your own journey? This story should shake us, disturb us, make us examine the darker corners of envy that exist in all of us, even if we never act on them in such extreme ways. And think about identity itself. Who would you be if you couldn't compare yourself to anyone else. If there were no social media, no visible markers of success, no way to measure your life against others, would you still know who you are? Emma lost herself in the pursuit of someone else's life. But in smaller ways, many of us do the same thing, defining ourselves by external markers rather than internal truth. The question this story leaves us with is profound and uncomfortable. Are you living your own life, or are you performing a version of someone else's? Are you so busy envying others that you're missing the value of your own unique existence? Emma's tragedy can't be undone, and Sarah's life can't be restored. But perhaps their story can serve as a dark mirror, reflecting back to us the potential consequences when envy consumes us and we lose sight of who we truly are. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in Emma's position, feeling invisible and overshadowed your entire life? Not the murder, but how would you have handled those feelings of inadequacy? Do you think constant comparison between twins and siblings creates these destructive dynamics? Have you ever felt like you were living in someone's shadow? And how did you navigate those feelings? Could Emma have found another way to build her own identity without destroying her sister's life? And here's perhaps the most difficult question. If you discovered that someone close to you had committed such an unthinkable act, could you ever find forgiveness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, and your perspectives help create meaningful conversations about these complex human stories. And if you found this story as compelling and disturbing as I did while researching it, you're going to want to see what's coming next. We have more true stories that will challenge everything you think you know about human nature, about family bonds, about the choices people make when pushed to their absolute limits. Click that subscribe button right now so you never miss our upcoming videos. Hit the bell icon to get notified the moment we post. Our next story involves a betrayal that makes this one look simple, a case where the person you trust most becomes the architect of your destruction. You won't believe how it ends. Until then, take care of yourselves, value your own journey, and remember that no one else's life is worth more than the one you're living right now. Your story matters, even if you feel like nobody sees it. I'll see you in the next video. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.